So we've seen the controller. We're now going to see the controller extras. Now, what are the controller extras? It's basically climbing, vaulting, and stuff like that. Okay, let's see them actually in action, which is this: climbing, vaulting, okay, and of course getting in cover, moving around, and actually aiming from cover. Okay, and if it's a cover that is like this, which is half cover, then you can aim from pretty much anywhere. But if it's cover of course like this, which is wall, that means you cannot aim from inside the wall, obviously. Okay, but you can aim at the sides. Now, some of them we have already covered them on the advanced third person controller. Okay, the same as we did in the previous video. And yeah, so let's see we've seen the state manager. Now let's see the controller extras. Okay, state manager, if we're moving positive on when we are in cover, if we need 2-point validation. This also is the same as the cover, the advanced cover system we did on the third person shooter Redux. Okay, so some of them are directly from there. We have our cover direction, where we want to move basically, our movement speed, okay, the minimum distance for the cover, how far ahead you can look when you're looking for cover, and how the offset you have from your wall. Okay, lowering this, which means you're going to hug the wall even more. And the sample distance is when you are moving, how far away you're looking for, if you are in cover or not. If you can name, if you have initialized the lerp, okay, if we have initialized the cover, length, leg speed, target start position, we are pretty much familiar with this. Relative input, a helper that is going to hug on your wall, just so that we can have any orientation we want, and we will be moving depending on the helper. And a cover position, which it's a class which only has 2 positions, and what was the initial hit. Okay, a reference to our wall canvas, and input, our input handler. When we initialize this, and we do so from the input handler, which we've seen it, okay, from over here. We pass the references, input handler, state manager. We create a new cover position. We only need one because we update basically its values. And we have the helper game object we created, and we also assign the wall canvas from the singlet, which we'll see later what the wall canvas is. And on update, we have a tick that we call from over here. Okay, we have our update, but we need to pass the pivot position of your camera. Okay, we're not looking from our player, from the character model of the player, because it might be a little bit too confusing. We're going to be looking at basically straight down from your camera, or where your pivot position is. And we have a cover text, which is basically the Q&E you've seen inside the level. You know, just prompts the user if he can vault or if he can get in cover and stuff like that. And if it's active in the hierarchy, then we're going to simply disable it. Okay. For the start of the frame, we're going to initialize as always on the frames that we cannot vault. Okay, and if we are vaulting or we are in another action, then simply do nothing of the below stuff. If we are in cover and we haven't yet initialized the cover, we're going to get in cover, otherwise we are moving. Okay, if we are not in cover, then that means we're probably looking for cover, except if we are actually vaulting or if we are actually in another action. Okay, and if we can vault, Then we go and open again the game objects that says you can press Q to vault or E to get out of cover, or actually the E, I think we've enabled it from somewhere else. Okay, so we're only enabling the vault text, but because it's a vault text, that means we also need to know where to place it. So we're going to place it at a position we have already saved, which is going to be the same as your cover text, but we're going to just add it a little bit higher up than what is the cover text. Okay, and we're going to assign the same rotation which on the cover text rotation. Keep in mind that these are old object UI, and the cover text will make it to look towards ourselves, or basically we're going to make it to look towards the normal of where our raycast hit goes. Now let's see the functions individually. If we are looking for cover, again we want to pass the pivot position. If we're going to start as we cannot cover, and we're going to level the pivot position to be the same Y as our model's actual position. Okay, and we do that because we want to raycast from the feet of our character and not from the shoulder height. Okay, because the pivot position is approximately roughly about your shoulder height. Of course you can change this, and so it will be something else. Obviously we do not want any of that. We want to look what's on the feet of our character. The starting position for all of this, of course, is going to be the new pivot position. We're going to find the target direction will be where the same direction as where our transform is looking, and of course we want to disable the Y in case there is any. We're going to do a raycast. Okay, the origin is going to start. We do not want to be exactly on his feet, so probably a bad idea that I disable this. Okay, we do not want to raycast directly from his feet. We want to go a little bit higher up, and that's what we are doing here. Okay, and as I write over here, it's essentially how high an object needs to be taken as cover. Okay, so if you raise this even more, that means you're going to have even a half cover will be even higher. So we're doing the raycast. Okay, we have our origin, target direction, and the look for cover distance. The value we're looking is for 2 points. Okay, and we're passing all our ignore layers, otherwise we're going to be always hitting our own colliders. When we're going to look if we hit the box collider, okay, so it will only find box colliders inside your lever, not mesh colliders, and we're going to find the direction between our hit and our own transfer position, and we need to check for a dot product, and if it's in front of our target, okay, because there is the case that we might actually hit something behind us, in case because we're not entirely raycasting from the feet of our target, we are offsetting it a little bit either on the left or the right, depending on what your pivot position is. Okay, so we need to make sure what we're hitting is in front of us. Otherwise, when you are sitting in a corner, you might want to, it might go into cover, on the right. And so the helper transfer position is going to be, we're going to place this in origin and our hit point and the position with offset. All it does, okay, it finds your target from your origin to where you want to go, of course normalizes it, and it gets the direction, because you have the direction, multiplies by the offset from wall, okay, and then simply adds it back. So this is a faster way, instead of having to write all this all the time, then we can simply use this and reuse it. The rotation will be the opposite of what the hit normal is, so it's going to look outwards. Now, and we're looking if the cover is valid, and the way we do this is okay, we start as false. This is entirely from the third person shooter index, almost a copy paste. So we are deciding if we are going to look towards the right or the left. Okay, from the helper we find our origin, which is the helper's position plus side, and obviously the opposite of what the helper is looking at. Okay, and the direction is, which is a little bit towards back from the wall, plus, so the direction we're going to look is forward, or where the helper is looking. If we hit something, if we do not hit well, this actually looks if there is a wall on your left or where you want to move. Okay, so that means you cannot move, there is a wall there. However, if there is no wall there, then it's going to look if there is a wall on the same level as you. Okay, so this is all it. Hit distance, and if it finds a collider, okay, it's going to look if it's box collider, and if you find, and basically if you are looking either the right or the left, it's going to assign a new, it's going to return you a new position with offset, okay, towards where you want to place it, either position 1 or position 2. Otherwise it's going to return false and then simply return. Okay, so we do this left and right. We do this left and right because we need two values, two positions, and when we are moving, we are technically just leaping between these two positions, but these positions update dynamically until there is more collider to go. If there is no more collider, then the position is not going to update, so you're going to reach basically the, you know, the corner of your box collider. Now, if the cover is minimum size, okay, either right or left. If you want to make this a plus or end, that means both of these need to be taken as true to be able to move. It's going to be a little bit more precise, but it's going to also be a little bit more restrictive. Okay, then we say to our states that we can actually cover. We update our initial hit, okay, and we have our cover text, the direction, our cover position will be our cover text position will be, you know, the starting position plus the direction multiplied by 0.95 so that it sticks a little bit out, not just a little bit out, about 5% off. And okay, we're making it look towards the outside of the normal hit dot point, so it's the position of the hit dot point plus the opposite of the normal multiplied by 5. And we can say that we're checking if we can actually vault over it, and if we cannot vault, we're checking if we can actually climb over it. Now, can vault over is exactly as the advanced third person controller, however it's used, you know, it's not checking this automatically. It first checks if there's a box collider, it first checks if you have a cover, and then it's going to check if you have if you can vault over it. Okay, if it's not in here, then that means it's probably too small, or the collider is very small, so it's going to ignore it, or it's probably going to be an error, or you know, you missed a collider or something. Okay, there's not so much to cover as extra to this. As I said, it's entirely the same thing as we did on the advanced third person controller. So what it does, find the wall direction, we do a recast towards the wall. Okay, we see if it's actually a wall over your object, and if it is, it's going to return false, or just return basically. If it's not a wall, okay, we need to check if we can vault over it. So we're basically doing a raycast above the box collider we hit, okay, and then down to see if there is actually, you know, floor. Although you can just make it so that it can actually jump over it, even if there's no wall. Okay, so he can fall down, and yeah, okay. We do all this depending on if we're running or not. We're basically applying different values. We do a raycast, and yeah, I'm not going to cover this again. So basically what we need to know is current volt type. We change the volt type to either walk or run depending on our state. Current volt true. Target volt position will be what we hit over here. Okay, go to the advanced third person controller and you will see this covered more in depth. It's exactly the same function, and the same goes with the climb over. The detection is exactly the same. Okay, only we're all looking higher up, and on the end what we're doing is basically all this, which is again the same as we did before. And yeah, that's it. On the advanced third person controller we also had walk up, but I just changed it to climb up, so I'll be done with it. Okay, climb anim, can volt true, and if you can climb up or not. So again, in the advanced third person controller videos you'll find this and this more in depth. Also for the cover on the third person shooter Redux you will find this also more in depth. Now the cover movement is slightly different. So we're going to see if we're going to take our input raw as it comes into the state manager, not you know, relative to the camera, and we're going to turn it relative to our own character basically. And we have half cover. We need to check if it's half cover. Okay, and we do it this way. Half cover means that it's not full cover, so you know, you need to be crouched all the time to be considered that you are under cover. So we're just doing a raycast higher up from what we have hit, and if it returns false, then that means it's not a wall, it's half cover, you know, a fence or something like that. Okay, so it will force him to crouch. Okay, this is what it does. I'm pretty sure you are familiar how raycast work by now. Okay, so if it's half cover, we say crouching is true. One more thing. Notice that this is entirely based off yeah, actually I believe that if we have a helper cover, and we have, instead of this we could just do a helper.forward, the direction we want to look towards. Okay, so this might actually work slightly better and more accurate instead of doing it from your transfer forward. We will see this in a bit if it works. And actually I'm going to put a sign over here in case I need to change it. Okay, half cover, we're crouching, and relative input X. If it's not 0, then that means you are moving. Okay, you're changing the pivot of your camera depending on what this is. If we are moving positive, then that means the relative input will either be higher than 0 or lower than 0, and we need to know our cover direction because we are doing this for some other stuff. Okay, so if move positive, either 1 or -1 for our cover direction. We also assign this on our states. This will also work later when we want to do multiplayer, where we're going to sync cover direction through all the clients and stuff like that. Okay, so some of the values we are passing will be used for that one later down the line, and it's not really necessary at this point. Okay, so if we are in cover, we can move we check if we can move on the side, or we check from starters if we can look. And okay, well, actually, let's just see this in a bit, since it's one of the bigger points. If we have 2-point validations, then that means if we are not already in cover, we're going to check a little bit again with a slightly offset than the previous way. We do this because there might be a few cracks, you know, inside our box colliders, through our box colliders, so it's a little bit more accurate, so you can jump a few small cuts. Now, if we need to also update our cover normal for our input handler into our input handler, and I believe we do this so that we can actually, you know, lerp to get into cover. And if we're not in cover, then we reset our target direction will be 0, the relative input x will be 0, and if we can name will be true. So basically this not if is cover, that means this checks if you are at the corner. Okay, it's basically going to make your character not be able to move, but you can actually aim. If it's half cover, then it will always override the car name to be true. Okay, and we need to also update on the state manager if we can cover a car name, okay, which is going to be this. And if we can name and we want to actually aim, okay, we're going to reset the crouching, because as I said, I do not have crouching aim for the reasons I explained. Okay, and we're going to reset the relative input to be 0. And here's the thing that it's different from the third person Redux. On that one I had actually different animations to play when we are aiming for each side. If you're aiming from crouch to crouch aiming, okay, or idle and all that. Now we're going to ignore all that, and we're going to simply do, and now we need to of course reset this, and let's see if the other thing will work right now. Okay, so because all that needed animations, and because animations are hard to find, okay, we're going to simply do a lerp over here. So I can see we have a slightly problem with the helper. Okay, we're going to fix it. Okay, it shouldn't go back to crouching directly. However, I think this actually works though. So yeah, let's see this. But anyway, as I was saying, we're not using any extra animation. We're simply going to make him lerp towards a little bit towards the outside. Let's close this. Let's go back to the script. Okay, and that's what we're doing over here. We initialize the aim. We have a multiplier which changes depending on your cover direction, just to make it more correct. Okay, if it's half cover, then the multiplier will simply be whatever your character is holding, or the player is pressing, okay, on your state horizontal. Target position will be our own transfer position multiplied by the helper right, okay, multiplied by your cover direction. This is so target position of course will be the same as what our transform position y is, and the start position will be the transform position we are already in. We reset our variables, we say that we have initialized the aim, and we turn our rigid body to kinematic. Okay, so we add on our t. If the t is higher than 1, then this is 1. Transfer position will be lerp from the start position to the target position, then the target direction will be our stage aim position minus transfer position, and we basically rotate to look again towards the camera instead of rotating to look towards the side. Okay, the opposite of this, we've seen if we have initialized the aim, we're going to simply lerp back. Okay, and again we save some of the values we need to have. We turn this to kinematic again. we add an RT, and then we simply, if the T is higher, then we simply reset everything. Otherwise, we're placing our position with a lerp, rotation, simply as that. Otherwise, we're doing a recast. We have our cover direction, transform right, multiply by our cover direction. Okay, we have our origin. Yeah, we're basically looking if there is cover, and we do this. We do a recast from our origin towards our cover direction, and we can also check if we can vault over it, and also if we can climb over it. So if you are hugging or if you are in cover, you can see that I can actually vault without having to go out of cover, and the same goes if it's half cover or not. Okay, let's leave this at this. So let's come over here, and in any case, target direction Y will always be 0. We have we apply velocity to our rigid body depending on our target direction, multiply by the absolute value of the relative input x, and we multiply this by a cover movement speed. Okay, because we pretty much always want to, whatever input we have over here, we only want to move forward. Okay, because if you want to walk backward, it's going to rotate him and look towards that way. So this works just fine. And of course, we're making him look towards the cover direction by using what the helper is saying, and we do the rotation. And finally, handle cover animations, which is this. Let's close the movement, which just takes the values and it passes it around. The movement will be the absolute value of the x, and it's going to basically clamp it from 0 to 0.5. Because we are crouching, then that means you're only walking forward. Okay, because as I said, we're simply rotating and we're passing them to the animator. Can move on sides. Okay, it's either left or right. Yeah, I think we've covered this, haven't we? Okay, we find either help or right, and we check if there is any box collider, and we also check the angle. As you can see, again, it's directly from the third person Redux. We check the angle between what we hit, so if it's lower than 45, then that means it's going to continue rotating around it. Okay, we place the helper position with offsets, and we make it look towards the opposite of the normal. Is cover valid? Return value false. Okay, it's going to look towards the side we want to check, and we're also going to do a recast, and okay, we're doing a recast, and we update. Yeah, we've seen this. We update either position 1 or position 2. Let's scroll this. We've seen this. Is half cover. We've seen this. Position with offset. We've seen this. Getting cover lerp. We save the distances, and basically we're lerping from the first time we're going to get in cover. The first position is going to be our own transfer position. The second is going to be, well, the cover position. Okay, we have all this. We basically save stuff, and we then going to lerp to that. We're doing a lerp. Okay, we're pressing it, we're placing this, and our lock rotation is going to be based on our cover direction and our rotation. Again, this is from the third person Redux. I think it was called dynamic cover system, so check that also to get even more info. And if we want to reset cover, we basically need to reset to turn these three variables as false. So that's it for the extras. Okay, it works with slightly less stuff, or basically we do not need any animations to work with the cover. so that's why where you also want to aim. So that's why I wanted to use this. And yeah, so we're not actually done. We need to also see handle movement. We have our movement normal, and now we need to actually see the override logic, which let's go to the update. Okay, which is basically these two things. Volt logic in it and handle vaulting, it's the same even if you are vaulting or climbing. Okay, so keep that in mind. To initialize, all we do, if we can vault, okay, it's going to check if the behavior allows it, and it's going to run this vault phase init. Controller collider, it's going to make our collider to trigger, and depending on the vaulting time, okay, idle or walk, it's going to assign the correct override speed, and it's going to play the correct animation. Walk up, we do not have anything on the walk up, and climb up, it's going to basically play the climb animation name. Okay, these are the actual, oops, and I think this is this probably weird. Anyway, let's see a good definition. Yeah, this shouldn't be here actually. This should just be, take it from this, and let's find our statics. Let's throw them in over here. This will be some animations. Well, there is this animation, so we're going to take this. Let's go over here, and let's change this to statics. Climb up over here. Now this, the string over here needs to be the same name as what we have into our animator. Overall, climb up high. Okay, they need to have the same name, so let's make sure they have the same name. I'm going to save this also. Climb up high. Okay, we have all this. We basically play the correct animation, and we reuse some of the variables. Force override timer, okay, 0. Force over life, we find the distance. We reset our curve in case we want to use the curve. We set up rigid body as kinematic. The start position will be our transfer position plus what we have saved on our cover normal multiplied by 0.5, so it's a little bit backwards. Otherwise it's just going to be our transfer position. The override direction will be this. Okay, from our target position to our start position. You basically find the way you need to move. Okay, this is the most basic stuff you can do. Target vault position again will be the target position, and if it's vault type of climb up instead of just vaulting, it's going to get your starting position. It's going to basically override everything you have over here. It's going to go apply the start position. The target vault position will be the starting vault position, and the override direction again is going to be the same also. I guess you can just delete this, but let's just keep it in case you want to override it, because when we're climbing up we're actually using a curve, we're not using a simple lerp. Okay, and then in case we have enabled vault from cover, we turn this to false. Now let's go back up. Handle vaulting. Okay, if it's climb up then we are using the curve, otherwise we get, if we have you know, if we want to use the curve. But to be honest, let's just get rid of this. And actually, okay, since I've just have all on my curve, I just have from 1 to 1, so it's a little bit redundant. And force override time, we add on our time on our time delta time multiplied by target speed, we subdivide by force over life. And if it's over than 1, then we have basically stopped vaulting, we have reached our destination. Okay, otherwise we are placing him into the target position we want, and we also make him sure it looks towards the correct rotation. To stop vaulting, we pretty much open everything back up, or we reset everything, and we have a coroutine that is going to wait for a few seconds, and then it's going to re-enable again the can vault. Okay, so that you're not vaulting all the time. Okay, these are almost exactly the same as the advanced third person controller. Again, as I said, it's why we created the advanced third person controller, so that we have a base to work with. And this is called from the animator state behaviors, and if we want to add some extra velocity, okay, if we are vaulting, then we're going to simply ignore all of this. Otherwise, we're simply initializing all of this, so we're passing variables. Okay, how much time we're going to be applying this force. If we want to clamp it, when we finish, we want to basically nullify our velocity. If we want to use a curve, and if we actually want to use the curve, what curve is that, and if it can actually be interrupted. If it can actually be interrupted means that if in any case you are applying force and you are not touching the ground, then that means you are going to fall down. Otherwise you're going to get that Looney Tunes effect, okay, that you are on the air and it stops adding force and you simply fall down. The override logic is this. Okay, I've covered this again on the third person controller in case you want to add delegates to have to run some special behaviors or anything like that. If you're using a force curve, then you're simply sampling that curve so that it's applied a little bit differently. Force over life, force override time, okay, we're adding, and if it's over, then we simply store everything. We run any delegates we might have. Obviously we do not have anything right now, but of course these are for your, these are learning projects, so we need to cover a few cases that you might want to do, not necessarily you have to do. Okay, and this stuff that basically enables the root movement. You need climb curve. I'm not going to go again with this because this is entirely the same as in the advanced third person controller. Okay, so I'm just scrolling this for, just so that you see that everything is the same. And you can go and watch the videos on the advanced third person controller because there is no need to repeating myself. So this is it, and the only thing that we need to actually see, and of course we need to rebuild to make it recompile again. Oh, and we forgot to save something. Oh yeah, so that's why this was over here, because we had on the advanced third person controller the climb animation name. We're actually deciding which animation we want to play from over here, but since we do not have any walk up, then that means this is pretty much useless. Okay, let's save this and let's see where else is going to give us an error. And this is the other place where it's going to give you an error. Okay, because it finds if you want to depending on the climb difference, it's going to play a different animation. If you have different climb animations, okay, then you can re-enable this and add it again on your state manager. Add this backup, but we won't need them since we only have one climb animation. So let's remove this. And yeah, the last thing we're going to see is the world canvas, which is somewhere over here. Okay, all it does has a reference to the cover and vault text, and it's also a singleton. Inside your level though, what this is we're loading the level. We have our level dependencies, as you can see on the left, which is this canvas world space. Notice that it's actually render mode world space, and you can see the cover text, which is because we haven't yet found a wall, it's right over there. But if we go onto a wall, you will now see this over here. Okay, cover text, vault text, and all this does is basically there is all of these are hard-coded values. So even if you change the key, this will not update. So keep that also in mind. Okay, so basically this is it for our entire controller. We've seen the aiming, we've seen, of course, moving around, reloading, and the extras, which is cover, vaulting, climbing. Of course, we can do a lot more stuff, and we can add a lot more stuff, and we will add a few more stuff later on. Okay, takedowns, stuff like that, but a little bit later. But as a first base, this works exactly as I was intended this to work. So we're almost done with the first batch or the first update for this, and on the next one we're going to see either the objectives or the pickable items. Okay, because both of these are an entirely subject, a whole different subject. So we're going to see the objectives is a little bit more advanced. Okay, and it has to do with, setting up objectives, what it needs to do, where you need to go, and all stuff like that. So you know the procedure by now. Hit that like, it helps a lot, even if you do not think it helps. Okay, subscribe, of course, if you haven't already, and if you want to see more, then your support is very much needed. Okay, as you know, Google Ads are there's no existing revenue from ads, so I'm entirely based on your support to keep continuing making all this. Okay, the ways you can support me is, of course, either through Patreon or by grabbing a project or 2 or 3, or 5 from Gumroad, including, of course, this one and all the other nice ones. So I'll see you on the next one.